No, okay.
Once this is going.
So are we recording now?
Yes.
Okay, so today is Tuesday, September 8th, 2020. This is the Town of Waldoboro's Marijuana Committee meeting concerning the marijuana ordinance. Present are by Zoom, myself, Jane Saran Pine, Chair, Renee Grover, and Freeman Zausner, 2 other members, and that constitutes a quorum of the meeting. And Max Johnstone also is present, town planner. So the first item on our agenda is to review the minutes from the last meeting. Is that correct, Max? And did you send those to us?
I sent them last week, I believe.
Okay.
Yes, I sent them on September 2nd. These are the August 11th minutes.
Oh, shoot. And I I see something from August 5th from you.
August 5th.
Yeah. Oh, September, you said September 2nd, sorry.
September 2nd, yes.
What was the date of September 2nd? What was that date?
That would have been a Wednesday.
Okay.
Actually, I think I have it. If you want me to just share the screen to show the minutes.
I think you better because I'm not finding it. I'm sorry. Renee and Freeman, had you read the minutes? Did you have any comments?
I have, and I have one comment when you're ready.
Okay. Let me share the screen. Okay. I'm now sharing the screen. So Freeman, what's the comment?
It would be on part 3, the second to last paragraph, which effectively on page 2, and it's the last line, and it says something, it's just grammatical. It says, Saran asked Max Stefano to incorporate a type of perimeter for odor, like Waldoboro does have a measurement for the brightness of lights. I think the have can probably be eliminated. Yeah, just kill the have in front of Waldoboro.
I'm sorry, where was this?
It was in the 3rd section. Medical, okay, but it ends up being at the end of it. It's the second to last paragraph, and it's the last line. It says, Waldoboro does have a measurement for the brightness of light lumens.
Okay, I see it.
That have in front of Waldoboro's can go.
Sorry.
No problem.
Okay, hopefully. So just making that one grammatical correction, that's it.
The minutes.
For
Right.
order, like Waldoboro has a measurement for the brightness of lights. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Were there any other changes?
I don't think so, but I think we, does anybody have a, Renee, did you have any comments?
No, I'm all set.
So, just, do you want to move to accept the minutes as
Move,
revised?
I move.
Okay, second. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Renee?
Aye.
Thank you. So now, on to the draft ordinance itself to review. Should we first go over the two comments that you received, Max, since our last meeting? Would that be the easiest thing to
Yes.
do? Okay.
So I'll just go in order.
Okay,
First, there was one comment from Susan Swed. Well, these are committee member comments, I should point out.
that's correct.
So Susan messaged me. She cannot attend today's meeting. She, other than liability insurance, which we'll get into in a minute, she did have an item relating to growing marijuana outdoors. She says she believes the town of Whitefield has a requirement explaining how fertilizer runoff will be dealt with. So she asked how this ordinance will address that. That is something similar to what we have in the shoreland zoning ordinance, because that's what her main concern was with how that runoff is going to affect water bodies. So that is the addition right here at 3.2.3.3. This is still under the environmental section for the application. All cultivation located within a designated shoreline zone is applicable to the shoreline zoning ordinance in the Waldeboro land use ordinance. That was, and so that would then just have the people go to the shoreland ordinance to see how manure, fertilizer, and other agriculture related practices would relate to this operation.
So my concern, I'm glad Susan brought this up. My concern was that when we had a discussion with the environmental engineer, Mike Thayer, this was never discussed, was it? I don't believe it was.
I know we talked about, I'd have to go through all the minutes, but I know we talked about pesticide and chemical use.
But I don't think we talked about fertilizers. Isn't that what, was
Yes,
that?
we did.
We did?
Yes.
Was Susan directly, I don't have Susan's comment. So what did Susan's comment say exactly, Max?
The whole thing she writes relating to fertilizers is also, I noticed that a nearby town, Whitefield, I believe, requires those growing marijuana outdoors to explain how any fertilizer runoff will be dealt with. I imagine this would also require those growing to indicate how much and what types of fertilizers they would be using.
Well, that's, Max, that doesn't really go to shoreline zoning. I think that,
there's still two more sentences.
okay.
In light of the fact that we agreed to allow outdoor growing out of the village, I believe we should consider having something similar in our ordinance. Perhaps that is covered already in our reference to the shoreline planning, which I assume that is what she means by shoreland or shoreland zoning.
Can you say that one more time? Perhaps what she
That
said?
is covered already in our reference to the shoreline planning.
Well, she's talking about shoreland, right? The shoreland zoning, but at the same time, is she trying to say something about in town versus out of town?
You're talking about like downtown versus,
Yes, I am.
okay. She's just talking about, I just see this talking about outdoor growing of marijuana and how the fertilizer runoff is dealt with.
Well,
The other thing is,
if you're not in a shoreland zone,
Hmm.
then your runoff can be anything. Is that correct? You're not guided by anything.
Well, part of this is that I tried to find a Whitefield marijuana ordinance and I couldn't find anything, and I've asked them for a copy. I haven't heard anything yet, but I'm going to try again.
Mhm.
This could be talking about stormwater runoff instead. This could be talking about, I don't really know. I just have that one little paragraph of what she says.
Uh-huh.
So,
But that, I guess, I'm just saying, aside from what she says,
mhm.
by you putting this in here, this 3.2.3.3, that only goes to areas within designated shoreland zone. And if
Mhm.
you're out of the shoreland zone, you can pretty much do anything you want. Isn't that correct?
For
The way
outdoor,
this is written.
for any cultivation.
Yeah.
Because I know the main concern is the outdoor cultivation, and those concerns were always about odor and screening. Correct? This is just talking about environmental impact. This one little section right here. Because I
I guess
think
I'm asking you a question.
what regulations cultivation would have.
Outside of the shoreland zone.
There is regulation. Well, we do have the section for outdoor cultivation specifying that they need to demonstrate that that the odor cannot be detected at the property line. And just quickly scanning through it. Oops. Hold on. Working on two different things right now.
Right, me too.
Well, we can include odor as well, but odor was the thing that I know was the only concern we really had on cultivation, that and screening. So that can, if we want to just add that type of item, we can. And if runoff is another concern, then we can include that as well. That's why I say this was a first draft. I didn't expect this to be
Right, and that's
complete item.
okay. I think we all know that. I think we all know that. This is, excuse me, first draft. I would like there to be a runoff addressed, certainly. And okay. So you're going to recontact the town of Whitefield.
Mhm.
But it sounded like Susan was saying she wasn't sure it was Whitefield, that it might have been somebody else.
He believes it's Whitefield, and I don't know about that. So I'm checking with Whitefield because they do have some marijuana ordinance in discussion, but I don't know what document specifically she's talking about because I can't find any public documents so far.
Okay. And I guess my concern is that it not be limited to shoreland zone. I mean, any cultivations that's within the shoreland zone is going to have to meet the shoreland zoning ordinance requirements, right?
Yes, that's why I wanted to put that in there.
So I'm not sure, but it's cultivation outside of the shoreland zone. So, I mean, you could say, rather than within a designated shoreland zone, that all cultivation I don't know, can we say that, Freeman or Renee, is applicable to the shoreland zone ordinance? My concern in part is I just keep thinking about the former Sylvania sites and what has happened there and what we're facing, what we're facing as a town with that. And no one did that, with any malice or anything like that. But this is what we're ending up with. And I
So,
Well, Loran,
think-
I just want to point out, these are plants we're feeding. We're not, feeding them radiation and barium and,
I know, but
high levels of, toxic
oh,
chemicals.
absolutely, that's
But
true.
whatever, runoff ordinances you're trying to imply, I mean, should be the same as any farmer in Waldeboro.
Mhm.
I mean, the state of Maine, nobody that grows marijuana uses pesticides. The plants don't like it. It's very hurtful to them. So, I mean, it is a drastic measure if we do, but if we do, we have to have a pesticide license issued by the state. You have to take a class, you have to take a test, you have to take 9 credits a year in order to maintain your pesticides license. So it's, I think whatever the agricultural for farming ordinances for runoff, etc. I mean, marijuana is probably far less environmentally impacted than most farms that, spread fertilizers on hayfields or pesticides or cow manure or whatever.
I can actually jump in right now. I'm looking at the specific performance standard we have for agriculture related businesses and how they relate to manure storage. And this is what it says. No manure shall be stored within 300 feet of the normal high water line of any water body, watercourse, fresh water, or coastal wetland, or wells used to supply water for human consumption, or within 150 feet from the nearest dwelling other than the applicant's, unless stored in a weatherproof structure designed to agricultural standards. That's what the ordinance says for agriculture.
Well, that just covers poop.
For manure. Yeah.
Right, and that's different from, for example, growing blueberries, which you spray. And I don't know if this is still true, but it used to be that if you were spraying for blueberries, not only did you have to have a setback from your property line, you also had to give a notice in the Registry of Deeds and directly notify all of your abutters.
I think that's a little drastic.
I don't know.
No, I do know. It is very drastic. I mean, most outdoor growers, you know what the cure-all is for mold and pesticides? It's a little bit of Dawn mixed with peroxide and water. A very diluted, that's about what everybody uses on outdoor marijuana for pest control.
At the moment, they're not limited to that, though. That's just what is customarily used, right?
Yeah, because that's the only thing that plants will really tolerate.
Mhm.
I mean, nobody's going to spray their plants with something toxic to kill them.
So where are we on this?
Well, I'm just quickly going through wherever fertilizers is mentioned in the land use ordinance.
Mhm.
In the shoreland zoning, it does mention that fertilizers and pesticides aren't allowed in fields within 100 feet of any water body. And it also states for commercial and industrial uses, following new commercial industrial uses are prohibited, and that's the storage of chemicals, including herbicides, pesticides, or fertilizers, other than the amount associated with individual households or farms. That's all in the shoreline zoning. And those are the only parts I can find that are relating to fertilizers.
Mhm. And I'm fine with that, and I'm fine with 3.2.3.3, but I'm just questioning, what if you're not in the shoreland zone?
I mean, I guess it's a matter of what the concern, like what you're worried the runoff could be, and you're stating it's going to be like Sylvania,
No,
where
I'm not saying that it's going to be like Sylvania. I'm just using that as an example of something in our town where a water table has now been ruined. And I don't doubt, Renee, that one person, you know, in this day and age, using one thing is going to, I mean, it's not likely that that person is going to ruin a water table, but you don't know over time. And so maybe we need to be cautious about this.
And I'm just saying that whatever is on the paperwork for these farms that have been running for years, you can't, on the grand scale of things, medical marijuana is far, far smaller than any of the huge farms that we have here in Waldoboro. And there's never been an issue with these farms. So you would either have to amend the farming regulations because medical marijuana falls under the Department of Agriculture.
So Freeman, you have said nothing. Do you have any comments or not?
I actually want to go back and look at my folder and all the town ordinances to see if they're addressed at all. So I'm going to do that after the meeting to see if I can find anything.
Okay. So we'll come back to this.
I'm just trying to make it fair.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the concerns and stuff, but it's, you know, like 100 feet from a water source. Yeah. It's just such a minimal aspect. And I understand that having something in place so if something doesn't happen, but, you know, it is an agricultural business. So it should just go along with whatever ordinances are for, you know, farmers who raise other vegetables or plants.
I think I can try and find where it is in the ordinance. Might be a hydrogeologic assessment item. I don't know, but it would just be an item to just. It would be more of showing where any runoff would go if there is like a stockpile, or what was their concern? It was how any fertilizer runoff will be dealt with. I guess if there's going to be any runoff from storage, just where that would likely go, or making sure they have it marked out where water bodies or wetlands are located on the site. And then
I think actually Susan was something in the email that you read, and I don't have it, so I'm not sure. But I think, or maybe it's somewhere else in this draft that I've been going through as we're talking. Maybe we just need a positive statement from the grower, the person growing, that this is how I do fill in the blank. This is how I handle fertilizers, or these are the fertilizers I use, and this is what I do with the extras.
I believe that is.
Don't we have that? I just
believe
couldn't quite find it.
Yeah. Let me. I think it was. Item. No, it's not that. Item.
Does it sound familiar to you? Because it does to me, but I just couldn't quite.
I mean, 3.2.2 discusses all the flammable materials relating to cultivation, and 3.2.1 is just describing the general information, such as the cultivation and location of distribution.
So it says that the license must address the following.
Oh, the license.
See, 3.1, I'm sorry, 3.2.
3.2, yeah, a license must be obtained prior to the opening of.
And so it must address the following items. So
Yeah.
it's the license itself that has to address shall make adequate provisions to prevent patrons or other persons from, well, okay, I'm reading the wrong one, but they have to.
Well, no, that's all stuff that would be submitted in the license.
Prior, yep. So maybe that does it, but we'll see what Freeman comes back with. So I think that does it. All right. So do we want to start at the top again?
Well, and then there was the one other item that Susan said, and you also asked for, and this is the liability insurance item. This was talked about a bit last time, and I didn't initially have it in this draft because I just didn't have a number, and I knew it was going to be talked about.
What do you mean you didn't have a number?
I just didn't have a number because there's this language, and this is based on what we have for some other businesses in town, some more bigger industrial projects. But that item where it says the amount of 1 million, I didn't have a number. I would have just been throwing a dart at a board to make a guess at what it would be. And I asked Stan what he thought, and he said 1 million seemed fine. And so this is the language that we have right here. So this is regarding liability insurance for the applicant.
Oh, okay. So this is not the same draft that you just emailed me. This is.
No, actually, I think that is the draft I just sent you.
This does not have a 9.1, 3.2.9. So, okay. So
applicant shall furnish proof of general liability insurance in the amount of $1 million to ensure adequate financial protection in the event of injury or damage caused to members of the public.
And just, I think I mentioned this to you in an email or a phone call, Max, that I did go ahead and call some local insurance brokers to see whether this insurance is available. And if this is a product that is common or what. And I was told that it is not uncommon. It is common that medical marijuana caregivers have liability insurance, and that generally it is in the amount of $1 million.
Okay.
What did Susan say about it?
She said, I did not see any mention of a requirement for liability insurance in the draft ordinance as we have discussed. I understand that insurance agencies are familiar with issuing such policies. I believe it will be in the best interest of the public for the providers to have a policy.
I would, on 3.2.9, I would delete the word there. I would just say the applicant acknowledges responsibility.
Okay.
I don't think you need that word. And I'm not sure that and the town, for providing safe products, and the town cannot be held liable for action they were not directly involved in.
Do you want me to say the town was not directly involved in?
You could say that. I'm not sure why you even say that. I mean, doesn't the town have sovereign immunity? I mean, but why would the town be, who would think that the town would be responsible for any of this? Am I missing something?
Because the town's regulating it.
Yeah. Someone could, I'm gonna just throw out a scenario.
Uh-huh.
Someone could go to a caregiver, get the products, and you could throw out any scenario really. And maybe they just fell outside that house, you know, or maybe they, I don't know, something didn't go their way. And they could come back and say, well, the town's the one that approved it, but the town thought it was all fine and dandy. So why am I now getting hurt by something that the town approved? And it's more of just saying the town thought that this was a fine business, but now I don't think it's a fine business. So I want to get the town.
Yeah, I'm thinking more along the lines of a prescription drug error, a mistake in prescribing something, in dispensing something, or in providing something. That's really what I was thinking of. I mean, so I want to be sure that is,
Just okay.
yeah.
Just gonna pull up. I think this was based on. It was based on an ordinance from, I think, Turner, Maine, I think. I'm gonna try and find it during this meeting. But it was, yes, marijuana establishments. Maybe it was a different one. I remember there was some ordinance. I remember the ordinance were saying, it was just saying that those who are getting the licenses acknowledge that as long as unless the town has like a police officer that's just parked right outside watching everything happening, nothing can really be, the town can't be held responsible for what happens on the property essentially. And that's just the one item that I was including in there. But if it's redundant to this committee, then we don't have to have it.
Well, I'm not sure that I would make, okay, I just need to think about 3.2.9 with 3.2.9.1. I might keep them separate. I don't know. Okay, so we should go back to the beginning of this. See what time it is. Doesn't tell me what time it is. Let's go back to the beginning of the draft.
Writing the notes. All right. So going up to the top.
So you pulled this from a number of different ordinances in the area or around the state.
Yeah, this was just getting some of the more common items and just getting the very basic stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and just refining some of the language. So one, just going over the purpose. This is just stating that, first of all, we do have the authority to regulate both types of marijuana industries, both medical and adult use, as stated in both state legislations and I'm referencing the local regulation portion for both of them.
What are we, we're not really dealing with adult use, are we?
No, but I'm just stating that we have the local regulation authority on that. So that's why, so this marijuana ordinance would be this, as well as I'm stating in 1.2, the rules set in the land use ordinance as well, that we have the authority to say what we want regarding marijuana in general.
Well, we don't disagree with that, but in as much as this is not involved with adult use, and since the town is not opted in,
You
I
want
would
to
like
just get
to
rid of it?
strike it. It's not necessary. And
All right.
furthermore, I want to get into nomenclature. You say it's a marijuana ordinance, but it's specifically
For medical.
two different things. It is both about domiciled medical marijuana caregivers and medical marijuana retail stores. And sometimes we use the word marijuana establishments, but we're not addressing all marijuana establishments. We're not addressing dispensaries nor retail adult recreational use. So I would like to use these very precise words. This is about domiciled medical marijuana caregivers and medical marijuana retail stores, both of which have a statutory use. And
So
you'll get
now when
down
you-
into other,
Freeman, when you say domiciled,
yeah, that's taken, I think, from South Portland.
That's
call-
down here at 4.1.1.
Right, you have it, but it's, and then medical marijuana retail store is language I got from South Portland's code. But when we're done, I think we have, even if my language that we have here is not exactly precise legally, which we need it to be,
Mhm.
these are the two things we're addressing, and only these two things and nothing else.
so primary residence in Waldeboro, is that right?
Domicile,
Medical marijuana caregivers.
well, no, I'm just quickly doing the domicile thing, just for Rand's point. Domicile is defined here, a person's fixed, permanent, and principal residential property. So this is their main, I don't mean state of Maine, but primary residential place. That's
Well,
what
I think-
domicile means.
I think you mean Waldeboro though, don't you? I'm just asking.
If they have a second home in Waldeboro, that's not really a, or if they have a if they
If
have
they
like
have a second home in Boston,
right,
then that person can or cannot come under this ordinance.
they would not be allowed, is what this was saying. That if they, I guess seasonal is the word I will say in this one. They have
Comes
a,
down to where their license plates are from.
Well, I mean, I would say that that the license is although I don't really know. Let's just talk about this for a minute. If you're getting a license to have a pharmacy in town, or a license to have a restaurant and have a bar, you do not have to be a resident of the town of Waldeboro.
no,
So I'm not sure why you're limiting this. And I don't know that you can.
the reason I'm saying domicile is because, well, last time there was a bunch of concerns over how the state of Maine was always changing their rules and regulations with more out-of-state businesses now coming
Oh,
in,
yeah,
flooding
right.
us.
Right.
What I was trying to focus on are people who are operating based the home aspect. That's what I'm trying to focus on here. People who are operating out of their homes or their own personal property.
Or
Which is-
their own personal what?
Their personal home properties, their personal residential properties. That's what I'm getting at.
But I think Renee told us that last time that some people actually operate out of their automobiles.
What's that? To
Do I,
Renee,
Meet Mason?
I don't remember that part.
Renee, didn't you say you met clients in your car sometimes, or that somebody did? It's not necessarily do, I mean, you might do the growing at home, but you don't necessarily provide the product at home. Is that correct?
Exactly. I mean, a lot of home caregivers don't meet people at their homes.
Yeah. So I don't, I'm not sure. Uh,
And also, I mean, a lot of people rent places to have indoor grows, and per the state, that's okay as long as there's written consent from the landlord. You have to be completely upfront with the landlord and let them know exactly what you're doing.
So what do we want to do here?
And I'm not really sure that if you have the right to tell somebody that they can't do something on their own property, whether they're seasonal or whatever, their property is still here 365 days a year and they still pay taxes. So,
Well, it's a question of do they qualify for a license? But I think you could definitely be right that let's just say a seasonal resident, a seasonal person, what's to stop a seasonal person? So, I mean, is the purpose of this definition, Max, to limit the number of people who have licenses or who are, let me use this word, awarded licenses, because to get a license is a privilege. If people who are awarded licenses should be residents of our town. Is that what this is about?
Purpose, at least on the purpose is more of to focus on the home caregiver aspect, people who are meeting 5-6 patients and not having someone who's going to rent out, I guess, a warehouse somewhere and have 5 or 6 different growers there just for commercial use. I think that's the purpose.
But could I step in? It was my understanding, which could be wrong, that the main statutes say that has to be your residence. It can be rented or whatever. But what I'm going to suggest is that these are great questions. Could we put this in a parking lot and then go back to the code itself and see what the main code says about this? What the definition of because you're really talking about a licensed medical marijuana caregiver. That's the technical name in the code. Now let's just see how they define it.
As opposed to adult use marijuana business.
Right.
2.1, which we're not.
Which should not even be here.
We're not talking
There's
about.
only 2 things we're talking about: licensed medical marijuana caregivers and licensed medical marijuana retail stores, period. Of which there's only 3 in our town. That's the grandfather.
and I believe even if somebody has dual residences in multiple states, if they own property in the state of Maine, they can still get a medical marijuana card, a caregiver card.
Right.
So if the state's going to issue them a medical marijuana caregiver card, then they shouldn't be denied being able to grow.
So Saran, what were you asking to do with having domicile or home caregiver involving Waldoboro residency?
I don't know. I mean, I was really asking you a question. I understand that your draft was that to create your draft, that you went and looked at other towns or cities in the state. And I wondered why, if this was something that I have not been to every single one of our meetings for this committee. So for example, was there a discussion that we want to award licenses to our residents first? We want our residents. Maybe we can't stop someone from another state who has a piece of property here coming here and getting a license, but, maybe are we trying to limit the number of licenses somehow? That's really what I was asking you.
You can't.
I don't know that.
I do know that.
Hold on,
If the state
hold on.
issues somebody a Maine medical marijuana caregiver card, the town cannot supersede what the state has already done.
We cannot limit the number of caregivers, home caregivers. We can't limit that number. We can limit stores and other types of establishments outside of that home caregiver part. That is what we can limit.
Which has been done.
Which has been done, because we're not allowing any more. So right now, we're limited to what exists now, unless we decide to change this ordinance to say otherwise. So we can remove
So
the
if we
domicile.
cannot, I'm sorry, so let me just keep going here. So if we cannot limit the number of people who can have these cards to operate this kind of business, then why are we using the word domicile?
We
I
can
just-
remove,
I
we can
just-
remove the link. We can change that. We can change it if we want.
I didn't know, Max, if you all had a discussion that let's add the word domicile because we want everybody in Wald. I just didn't know. I'm asking you that.
I've always just used the term domicile caregiver just to always separate from, to be more distinct from a storefront. That's just what I've always, because whenever I would say storefront to some people, they'd say I'm not supposed to use that language because it implies I'm talking about adult use marijuana. And so I always say domicile caregivers, just because.
But I think Saran's point's right. You can only use what's in the code and the statute. So we have to go back to the statute. We can't create our own words. And if the statute says, for example, a medical marijuana retail store, then we can't say storefront because because we're really dealing with a law. So we just have to do a little bit more homework. And I think Saran raises a very good question, as well as Renee.
And while you might think of it as house or domicile and equating that with house, Max,
Mhm.
as Renee has said today, you could have an office downtown and have one of these licenses, as provided that, Renee, correct me if I'm wrong, provided you don't have regular office hours, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's not really domicile.
So are we amending the language? I think that's what I'm getting from this, correct?
I think
Honestly, I think you guys could take it right from the Maine medical marijuana policy handbook because they are very specific that caregivers are to have facilities or grow on their own property unless they are renters. Not everybody can own their own property, and they have to have written permission from their landlord stating that what they are doing is okay.
Right.
do you have that handbook, Max?
I think I have one here. Let me just go check really quick to see where it is.
Maine medical marijuana handbook. Is that what? I don't.
So back,
Are you talking about a digital item or are you talking about a physical book that they gave you?
I have one right here.
It
Let
could
me
be both.
look it up.
Is it available, Renee, is it available online?
Sure is.
Okay, so let's all circulate that, Max. And I'm looking at 2.1, and I think the first definition, I think, needs to be
Removed?
removed.
I'm just gonna do that. Just a minute.
Mhm.
right, just writing all this down. And just from Freeman's earlier point, should we also be removing this part as well? Just saying that the authority is granted from.
Yeah. Yep. So you'll provide us with like a red line version. Can you do that when we're done today? That would be helpful. So we can see, and Susan, because she's not here,
Mhm.
what you've stricken and what you have added in. That'd be so helpful. So,
And I just found this under main code. The
okay,
legal phrase is caregiver retail store. Caregiver retail store means a store that has attributes generally associated with retail stores, including but not limited to fixed location, assigned regular business hours, accessibility to the public, sales of goods or services directly to the consumer, and used by a registered caregiver to offer marijuana plants or harvest around for sale to qualifying patients. And this is under the main medical marijuana statute. So it doesn't apply to retail or adult recreation. But that's the phrase, caregiver retail store. And I think, without, we can put this in a parking lot, but we've got to go back to what the code is so that our ordinance conforms to main law.
great.
So am I just going through each section, or because it's been about an hour now?
Right.
Well, we may not have time, but for example, dispensary, I would just strike the entire section.
Okay. And then, I mean, section 2 is all about definitions. So that's just a matter of whether you want to remove or add things. Section 3 is just going through the licensing and what will be required for approval. And all the requirements are under 3.2. But the first two items is just stating that to legally operate one, it needs to get municipal approval before they start operation, as shown in this ordinance. And if they don't, then they need to pay an additional fee. Or no, I'm sorry. And I'm sorry, 3.1.1 is just stating that anyone who has been operating before this ordinance takes place, they're not expected to do some back pay for any of the licensing fees, but they are expected to, like next year when this is enacted, if this is enacted, start paying the fee once the licensing has been done. So if we set the fee, I don't even remember what the fee is, but if it's 100 per se, we're not expecting anyone who's operating a marijuana business to pay 5 years worth, but they are expected to start paying once this ordinance is enacted for that first year and so on. And then 3.2 goes through the licensing requirements. You have general information. This is just basic contact information and where the cultivation and distribution takes place, and just a signature from the applicant verifying the information is accurate. Well, all information in this is going to be accurate. Flammable materials, this was talked about with Mike there, just stating if there's going to be any on the same property. This could be related to marijuana. This could not be related to marijuana. It's just a matter of knowing where in relation it is going to be for the cultivation, processing, or storage of the marijuana business. And then we have the environmental portion of it, mostly relating to the shoreland, but this is just so that there's no loitering on the site, and all disposal does not take place within 250 feet of the water bodies. We then have the security items under 3.2.4.
No,
Um,
I have a, well, go
Yeah.
ahead, Freeman, then I have a
no,
question.
go first.
I have a question for Renee, I guess, and that is, Renee, if we have someone who, a caregiver who really is not operating out of that person's home, but in fact meets people, is there something that we need to be saying about that section or sector of the group?
Like, I guess I don't understand your question.
Well,
Like if someone leases a building,
no, if you're in your car, I'm thinking. I don't know.
I guess I'm trying to figure out what the problem is.
I don't know. I don't know that there's a problem. I'm asking you. But I wonder, I mean, obviously, if you're just operating out of your car, at least half of this stuff doesn't apply.
when you're saying operating out of the car, you mean like delivery?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, they would have to grow it. Isn't that what part of this is talking about? The people who are cultivating or distributing at their home?
Yes, but I mean, in all honestly, not very many people have people come to their home. It's a security issue. So most caregivers meet people in other places.
And that would just be under the general information, pretty much just saying, I grow here and then I go meet my patients.
Mm-hmm.
That would just be the very basic item.
So on their town application, there should be a section, will you be meeting patients at your home or will you be meeting them off premise?
right. That's true. And if you're meeting them off premise,
I think that can just be under general information again. Just, I could just have it as a little part under general information. Are you going to be meeting patients? Is there a designated location you are going to meet your patients, or are you delivering it? Something along those lines.
so if you're delivering, do you need a special driver's license or license plate for your car? You know, do you need
No.
commercial plates? I don't know.
No. Nobody that delivers anything else has to have a special plate.
Why do they have special plates then?
For who?
Anybody? Any truck drivers or wherever? Delivery people, they have special plates, commercial.
That's based on vehicle weight, Soren.
Well, no, I don't think so, because even cars can have commercial plates. Automobiles can, doesn't have to be a truck.
If it's a business,
Yeah,
these are home caregivers. It's not technically a business.
Put that for now. I'm sorry, I was distracted thinking of the language for that. So this is just talking about special licenses for deliveries?
I don't know, I was just throwing that out there for people to think about, that's all.
I mean, I don't think there's too much to go on. Just again with the license, once we just say they're going to go deliver it, it's just going to be there, just for the record. So security, I know we haven't talked about it, but Freeman probably is aware of what I'm about to talk about. This item right here, 3.2.4.6. We're adding something similar into the land use ordinance, just because I've been asked by Chief Smeltzer to include such language for other types of commercial businesses, and that's to have a lockbox on site, just so that in the event of a fire, the fire department is able to access and have a much more rapid response to an emergency. This is something I didn't know if we wanted to include it, just because it's still talking about commercial technically. And this could be applicable more to the larger scale operations, and rather than just, everyone's own little small, every small little nook and cranny.
Well,
This
what are the sizes of the businesses? You don't address
Are the
that
commercial
anywhere.
businesses?
Yeah, do you here? Of the medical marijuana caregivers, do you?
It's plant-based, everybody. It's plant-based. It's not building-based.
Right, so it's only, I mean, what is it? Was it 30 plants? Is that what you said, Renee?
Yes.
Yeah, so if someone had 30 plants, does that meet the threshold of scale of operation? Do you know, Max?
Again, this is why I want to quickly draw attention to it and ask.
Yeah.
Because we're having something similar placed in our ordinance for all commercial properties.
Okay.
But I did not know if this is something we want to include in this as well.
Well, we certainly have talked about fire.
This is just something where Chief Smeltzer here has the master key, so that if there's an emergency, they go and they have the way of accessing the facility in case of an emergency.
Mhm.
But if we believe it's so small that we're never going to have to really worry about that, then we can remove it.
Well, I guess I would be asking the fire chief. Renee, how much space do 30 plants take?
Maybe a 14-foot by 20-foot room.
Uh-huh. And if it were within the historic downtown area, there are buildings certainly spaced fairly close together in some areas. So, and if fire were an issue, that could be a problem. If you're outside of the historic district, so maybe you need to ask the fire chief, Max. It might not be the size of the operation, it might be the location. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't we? Well, yeah. And if nobody's home, for example, if you had fire, you're not requiring a sprinkler system, are you?
In this ordinance, I don't believe that's in here.
So if there's no automatic fire suppression system and nobody's home, then it probably would be a good idea to have a lockbox.
That's fine and good, but
maybe it needs
per
to be.
the state of Maine, you do not have to provide anything or open your building to anybody but an elected official. Is the fire chief an elected official?
If there's a fire, are you saying that the fire department cannot enter a building?
If there's an actual fire, yes, they can.
There you go.
And that's
But
what
if
that's
there's a fire,
Whether they have a key or not, they're going to get in the building.
so they just break down the door.
Go for it. They would at anybody else's house.
I'd be interested to know what the fire chief has to say.
Is he an elected official?
No,
Well, I would like, I mean,
I don't care. He's our fire chief. He knows more
That-
about fires than I do, that's for sure.
the intention.
That's great, Seren, but guess what? I've asked the fire chief 3 times to my house to put in a fire pond and I can't get him to show up. Also, per the state of Maine, I don't have to have a key for the fire chief to get into my building if there's a fire alarm or, you know, a suspicion of a fire. And no caregiver has to. And that's something that the town cannot make a caregiver do.
That's something I guess I'll also just check with the, I mean, this is all gonna have to go to an attorney to verify. I assume that's what is gonna happen. And they can verify that. If they say, no, it can't happen, then we remove the language. And I'll check with the chief to see what his thoughts are on. Again, I've only included this just because he wanted to have commercial industries included in this. He wanted just because he's sick of having a key ring with 50 different keys whenever there's an emergency. If we don't want to have this, then fine, we can just remove this.
Let's do some research, see if Maine code about the police power of the fire department. Let's see what we have. I have 2 comments on 3.2.4, 1 and 2. Well, actually, .2. A certified alarm system. I don't know what that means. Normally, I'm used to hearing a central station monitored alarm system or intrusion system. But alarm system is better because it also covers fire, low temp, etc. But it's usually central station. And then the next one on 3.2.4.3, it says, what is the standard for impeding on motorists, pedestrians, and neighbors? Is there statutory language or more or better language than impede on?
I think we have a lighting ordinance that addresses that, don't we, Max?
Yes, this is what we brought up last time.
Yeah.
Does it use the word impede?
No, I just wrote some quick language on that. The exact language is lighting shall, and we can use this language, lighting shall not directly or indirectly produce deleterious effects on abutting properties on which would impair the vision of a vehicle operator on adjacent roads. So I think that does not impair the vision of motorists, pedestrians, and neighbors. It's probably the different
Well,
language we can
You
use.
may want to use that more exhaustive language. It sounds pretty legal. And then on 3.2.6, is it a typo? It's the National Electric Code has now been updated to 2020, but you have the year 2002.
Second. I'm sorry, what's this on
3.2.6.
2.6? That is based on, yes, that's based on that's based on the general performance standards as well. Same,
But the National Electric Code now has been revised as of 2020. Why don't you just look at it? I hate to use 2002 if the code has been amended beyond that.
most recent version of the National Electric Code? Or do you want the exact year?
Well, I think I just saw on the web, I just looked at it, it was 2020. But you can look, I mean, you can ask an electrician what standard they're using now. Maybe they're still using 2002, I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Just going back up here. since we have just got through the security. 3.2.5 is all setback related. I mean, pretty basic stuff. This was all based on, I think, the bullet points that Freeman gave us a month ago. Then the electric parking provided for employees and at least one spot for customers.
Mhm.
Good. Just to show where that is. Signage.
So it's, if I can say, it's almost 1:30 and I need to close at 1:30.
Okay.
We are not going to finish this today, obviously, and which means that we won't be able to get it to the select board in time for this to get on the November ballot. Am I correct?
Correct.
So what we should do is set up another meeting. And that would be the second week in October, second Tuesday in October. Am I correct?
Yep. That would be,
The
Good.
13th.
I have that as October 13th at 12 p.m.
Yeah.
That is the day after Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day, or in my case, Canadian Thanksgiving. But that would be the day.
I just have a request. Can we not do it at noon?
Oh, thank you.
It's right in the middle of the day.
It is, but we were meeting earlier, we were meeting later in the day and it was too late, I think. So what's a good time for you, Renee?
Like morning,
Morning,
like 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock?
Yes. I would like to, all of my meetings are starting back up again. Like I missed the Waldoboro Women's meeting today.
All right.
My poor ladies. But
Good night.
if
I
we
can
could
do
do it
9.
early in the morning.
I can do 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Freeman?
I can do it.
Oh,
Max?
excellent.
Max?
Yep. 9
Great.
a.m. 9 a.m. is fine. Just write that down.
And just quickly, Seren, when you were asking about transportation and stuff, the
Yeah.
state is covering that as soon as they get this tracking system in place. We are going to be required to carry a manifest whenever we have marijuana in a vehicle, so that if we do get stopped, we can show the officer the manifests. They know exactly how much we're carrying.
Interesting.
So the state is doing a lot of the things that you guys are talking about. I
Mhm.
think maybe you and Freeman might want to get on and read the policy book from the state, just to go over, what the state is regulating before we just keep kind of going around on the same things.
Is that different from the handbook?
No, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing. Okay, so
Yeah.
Max, you're gonna find that and circulate it online for all of us, right?
You can just go to, you could just type in Maine Department of Marijuana Policy, and it is actually in a bullet right there on their website. So everybody has access to it. It's a public access book.
Okay.
And so on our committee, Ted has never attended, but I know you do talk to him, Max. Has he
I
ever-
would actually like to talk about that sort of outside of the meeting.
Okay, I was going to ask whether he has ever had any comments for us. And if
He is not.
if we send, for example, a link to the policy handbook, would he read that?
I will forward it to him.
Okay.
But again, I think I need to talk more about that outside this meeting.
Okay. Yep. And who else is on our committee? Oh, Susan,
Susan. Yeah.
Wed. Okay. So there's 5 of us essentially.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Great. Well, is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
I second.
Thank you. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye.